Hi, I'm Alison Jacobs, the Program Director at Camp 180. I help design the structure and flow of our courses. I'm here to make sure that your learning journey is meaningful, clear, and well structured.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our Python 2D game development course. We are on lesson 7 of our Python Basics module, and I'm Alison Jacobs from Camp 180. In the last lesson, we learned how to use Python to perform basic math. We practiced arithmetic operators, worked with variables, and even updated values like player health. Today, we'll take things to the next level, making decisions with our code using if statements. By the end of this video, you'll know how to control the flow of your program so it responds differently depending on conditions, a crucial skill for building games. In real life, we make decisions all the time. If it's raining, take an umbrella. If you're hungry, get some food. If you reach the finish line, you win. Computers also need to make decisions, and in Python, we do this with if statements. In game development, if statements are everywhere. If the player has 0 health, game over. If the score reaches 100, unlock the next level. If the character touches an enemy, lose a life. Let's see how this works in code. Create a file called if_examples.py. In this file, create a variable called score and give it the value 10. Start a conditional statement by using the word if. The condition to check is whether score is greater than 5. If this condition is true, perform the action in the next line. The next line is part of the conditional action and should be thought of as indented. The action is to display the message, you win. If the condition is not true, do not perform any action and move on. Add the next example to your if_examples file. Create a variable called health and give it the value 0. Start a conditional statement using the word if. The condition to check is whether health is equal to 0. If this condition is true, perform the action in the next line. The action is to display the message, game over. Notice that here we are checking for equality. We do this by using a double equal sign. A single equal sign is used to give a value to a variable. A double equal sign is used to compare two values to see if they are the same. Here is another example. Create a variable called age and give it the value 16. Start a conditional statement using the word if. The condition to check is whether age is 13 or more. If this condition is true, perform the action in the next line. The action is to display the message, you can watch this movie. The key thing to remember is that conditions can only be true or false. If the condition is true, run the indented action. If the condition is false, skip it and move on. Now let's combine this with asking the user for information. Ask the user to type their name and store it in a variable called name. Start a conditional statement using the word if. The condition to check is whether the name typed is Alison. If the condition is true, perform the action in the next line. The action is to display the message, welcome back teacher. If you type Alison, the condition is true and the message is shown. If you type anything else, nothing happens. This is how you can make your programs interactive, meaning they can respond differently depending on what the user types. Try this little experiment. Ask the user to type a number and store it in a variable called number. Make sure the value is treated as a whole number. Start a conditional statement using the word if. The condition to check is whether dividing the number by 2 leaves no remainder. If this condition is true, perform the action in the next line. The action is to display the message, that's an even number. Here, we are using a bit of math together with the if statement. If dividing by 2 leaves no remainder, the number is even. This is an example of how simple game logic can start to work in a program. Let's look at mistakes beginners often make with if statements. First mistake is forgetting the colon. If you write a conditional statement without the colon at the end, Python will give an error. Always put the colon after the condition to show where the conditional action starts. The second mistake is using a single equal instead of checking equality. Remember that a single equal gives a value to variable. To check whether two values are the same, you need to use a double equal sign, which is the comparison for equality. The third mistake is problems with indentation. The action inside the conditional must be indented. If it is not indented consistently, Python will give an error. Usually, the tab button or 4 spaces are used for indentation. Our fourth mistake is using the wrong comparison or logic. Make sure the condition actually matches what you want to check. For example, if you want to check whether health is 0, writing a condition that checks if it is greater than 0 will not work as expected. Always check your logic carefully. Here is your homework for lesson 7. Create a new file and call it game_if.py. First, ask the user to type their health as a number and store it in a variable called health. Next, check if health is less than or equal to 0. If this condition is true, display the message game over. Then, check if health is greater than 0. If this condition is true, display the message keep playing. An optional challenge. You can add another check to see if health is very high. For example, above 100. If this condition is true, display the message you're unstoppable. This exercise helps you practice using multiple conditions to make your program respond in different ways. Don't forget to use your free coding journal. Write down what conditions you tested today, what worked, any mistakes you made and fixed. There's a step-by-step written guide for this lesson available on Gumroad with code samples and extra practice questions. The link is in the description. You'll also find a full Python basics package on Gumroad with videos, walkthroughs, exercises, cheat sheets, and other resources covering lessons 1 to 12, all for just $10. Today, you learned how to make decisions in Python using if statements. These are the building blocks of game logic, controlling outcomes based on conditions. Next time, we'll learn about else and else-if statements, which let us handle multiple outcomes. That's super important in game development because most situations don't just have one possibility. You might win, lose, or continue playing depending on the circumstances. Thanks for learning with me, and I'll see you in lesson 8.